Welcome to my messy life. Take my hand and dive right on in with me. It's gonna be alright. Messy imperfect life with Leigh.
Scott Carter, welcome.
Great to see you again, Leigh. It is always a delight to see you. Because your mind is always very alive, and I feel like I have to be on my toes in order to deal with you.
That sounds good and bad.
Okay. We'll see how it goes.
I want to tell you something.
Okay.
Since I met you 20 years ago?
Almost, because it would have been 2001 or 2002 at when I was working at Oxygen after I'd left Politically Incorrect. So that would have been either, I think it was 2001.
All right. So how many years is that?
18.
I was close with the 20 roundup. And you left Politically Incorrect because I thought you were there forever.
I did the first 1,100 shows. And they were asking me to sign a 4-year extension. And I thought I'd kind of plateaued. Like I didn't think I didn't think I had any good new ideas in the last few months. And then I didn't think in the last, I think 6 months, I went back over the guest list and said, who is new, who I'm really interested to meet? And there wasn't anybody. The 6 months before I left, it was kind of the same people who I already knew. And then I thought, well, I don't think I'm growing. Maybe I should do something completely different.
Wow.
And so there was an article in the trades about Oxygen Media.
And that was Oprah's big first thing.
Well, it was Oprah and Jerry Laybourne from Nickelodeon and Carsey Warner, Marcy Carsey and Tom Warner. So it was 3 moguls were the heads of this. And there was an article, and they talked about who they'd signed up, and they had signed up Candice Bergen to do a talk show. And I had a lot of friends who had worked on Murphy Brown, and a lot of people who knew her, and everybody who worked with her loved her. So then I thought, all right, I've been working in this, not only Politically Incorrect being this kind of very heavy male energy show. And before that, I'd done a show called Sports Monster, which is about the world of sports. It was like a Larry Sanders. Before Larry Sanders, it was a Larry Sanders where 3 guys who were actors, comedians, interacted with the world of actual sports people.
Yeah.
So that was very heavy.
You were ready for something light with the feminine
so then I thought,
energy.
Let me go to the exact opposite energy, because I just adopted our second...
We both just had energy.
Yeah, we just just about adopted our second daughter.
Oh.
So then I thought, all right, I've got females at home, and this would be completely different, number one. Number two, I was at the beginning of Comedy Central. Before Comedy Central, Viacom had a network called Ha, and HBO had a network called The Comedy Channel, and neither of them were succeeding. So they, rather than both go under,
how much
they
longer
merged.
until I get to talk about meeting you what a big freaking angel you were in my life.
Okay, well,
I mean, I love the history of television.
All right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Well, now, but here, let me just keep going for 2 seconds.
You're so intellectual, and you look so cute today, by the way.
You look adorable always. I had to raise my game for you. Okay, so I called my agent and said, does Candice Bergen have a producer yet? And so I got a call back saying she doesn't have a producer, and would you like to meet her? And I thought, well, of course I'd like to meet Candice Bergen. So I go over to her house, and I'm with her for about 2 hours. And what I'm basically saying to her is, okay, you've signed to do a talk show. What scares you about it? And so she started listing everything. Here's what scares me. I mean, she was so great because
a neat question.
She put it right on the table. Here's what scares me. What if I'm talking to a guest, and this may happen to you later today. What if I'm talking to a guest and I stop being interested in them? Or what if I can't remember the next question? Or what if they know more than I do and I can't get them to be quiet? So anyway, she started listing all these things. And as I was listening to her, number one, I was so charmed by her
vulnerability.
By her vulnerability, because she didn't know me. We had a few friends in common. So she knew that we had friends in common. And she knew Politically Incorrect, but she never wanted to do it. So she knew that. But she was instantly so open. And then after I listened to her for a while, I said, you know what? I don't think there is any problem in anything you've mentioned so far. I think I can deal with every single one of those things.
What an interesting way you came in, is addressing, instead of saying, hi, I'm Scott, I'm really good, people like me. You said, what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
I can help you in your weak spots.
Right. And then
that's beautiful.
And I know we're not getting to the main thing that you want to get to, but this
I'm
is good
listening.
because we're exploring this right now.
Yes.
Okay, so here's what happened. She lived off of in the hills, Beverly Hills, and in the hills section off
The
Mulholland.
Hollywood Hills?
Yeah, off Mulholland.
A nice area.
The house was formerly owned by Roger Moore, and she called it Casa Costa Mucho because she'd renovated it a lot.
That sounds like something she'd say.
I also but anyway, what I started doing was I started going over to the house twice a week, and each time I would bring somebody for her to interview. And what I started doing was taking it from something so low key, and every time I brought somebody else, I added one more element. Like the first time, it was someone who we both knew, and he had been a writer on Michael Patrick King. He'd been a writer on Murphy Brown. He was in the closet during the Murphy Brown time. Then he'd come out, and he had all this success with Sex and the City. And so I said, I'm going to bring him over, and I just want you to talk to him about coming out, what that was like. So I didn't put any other requirements on it. Okay, the second person I brought over was Karen Finley. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
Karen Finley is this performance artist who she got a grant from the National Endowment, and Jesse Helms wanted to take it away from her. And she did a lot of stuff nude, and she did a lot of stuff rolling around in honey or chocolate, and very provocative.
Where did she do these things? Like for photo shoots or in public?
In performance art spaces all around New York and all over the world.
Wow.
So she was someone I knew. She used to be on Politically Incorrect. Okay, so I have her come over, and I said to Candice, all right, now we're going to do the same thing, except every 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a signal, and you're going to say we'll be right back with Karen Finley, and then we'll come right back, and in between the two, I'll talk to you a little bit. So over a period of time, I did like 10 of these.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And I did the same thing with Bill for the beginning of Politically Incorrect. So what you're doing is you're trying to get people incrementally going from, and I did this all in her kitchen.
So organic.
So she's completely comfortable in her kitchen. She has, her daughter, her friends are around her housekeeper, everybody's around her that she loves. And then I'm bringing in one new element each time. And so by the time we did our first taping, it was like she'd been doing it for a year.
Exactly.
Same thing with Bill. The first tape day of Politically Incorrect, I'd had him do 10 tests, just starting with, we're in a room and I'll bring in 4 people and let's go over some of the different topics that we've been talking about. And some of the early ones were terrible. I remember him storming off at different points. But by the time we got to the first day of taping, he was able to be completely natural and just, do it. And he like, it's like a rookie, and now you're in the World Series, and instantly he was ready to be in the World Series.
And Scott, it's that whole thing where when your mind has experienced it, I mean, they were actually physically experiencing it over time to develop those neural pathways in their mind. So of course it went with grace and ease.
Yeah.
But something I love that I've done before is doing like a visualization with my eyes closed and actually seeing me on a stage wearing this Janet Jackson thing, jumping and speaking to thousands of people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And no, really, I do.
No, I'm completely good with what you're talking about.
Okay, but I did it with my eyes closed, and I felt it, and I smelled the smells and the people around me, and who I saw, and what I was wearing, and I was so excited and so in it. It just felt so fulfilling. And then when I was done with it, it was like, that's already happened in my mind, and my mind doesn't know between real and make believe. It's already happened, so I already have this presence, knowing what's coming. I'm ready to step into it. It just reminds me of it in a different level.
Yeah, and what I would say for an exercise, I think the exercise you did is exceedingly valuable. Then what I'd say is when you open your eyes, I would ask myself, what's one step I can take toward
I've done
that?
Okay. I did that. I did all of that.
Okay.
And I just led a vision board class, and I put together my vision board last minute so it was ready to show the people who I was doing it virtually with. And I did it like 6 months ago. The other day we looked at it. I got asked to speak in Cairo. There are Egyptian pyramids on my travel part. I didn't even know I wanted to go to Egypt. I was like, I go, where's Cairo? And they're like, Egypt. I was like, oh my gosh, for some reason, I put these things. And then I'm just going to a trip in Bali that came up organically.
Wonderful.
This really beautiful trip with amazing women. And Bali's on there. But I did it fast. So it's just so interesting when things get out of your head.
That's right.
And they become in front of you.
Yeah.
They're real.
Yeah.
Then you just walk to it.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah.
Until our thinking mind says,
well,
I'm going to derail you.
Yeah. And think about all of life once you open your eyes. Everything, if you walk out onto the street, you walk out and to go to the mall or wherever. The entire world doesn't know yet that it's supposed to be cooperating with what you had in your head. And sometimes people lose the courage to keep pursuing what's happening.
Oh, no. I'd say 90% of people lose the courage. Everyone's got a great book idea in their head. Everyone's got a great movie idea. Everyone's got a shoe that they want. But unless we take it out of our head and onto a board and then take steps to it, it can't happen. And you die with those things. So I think it's so important to be bold.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say is that I have come to respect in time the people who are not obsessed the way that I have been through much of my life, or many people I know and love, with something so grand. In other words, I was up in Davis yesterday because my younger daughter just started school at UC Davis, and I went to meet her at a restaurant, and she was walking, but I was near where the restaurant was, so I got there 20 minutes before she did. And I was watching these people talk about such very mundane issues, and they were talking about them with the same energy level that people would be talking about, I got a series greenlit or something.
Yeah.
In other words, there is something, or I'll give you another example. I just finished watching the Ken Burns country music documentary. It's like 25 hours, and it's just incredible. And I feel like it was honoring all sorts of values that America has forgotten about, and that's why we are in the state that we're in.
Yeah.
But it's family, it's religion, it's God, but their notion of religion that's expressed in the songs that were in the documentary are about humility.
Yeah, I'm not big into religion because it's man-made. It's books that men have written and they tell you what you're supposed to do. And if you don't do it, you're not going to get this. And I don't believe in that. I do believe that there is this one higher power, this energy available to all of us that actually runs through us and we were created from. So I really feel like we're all connected 100% everywhere I go.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's when you were talking about walking into a restaurant or going out on the street. I'm like this. Who am I going to connect with today that I need? I need to get something from someone. Who's going to piss me off so I can go inside and see where I'm hurting?
Yeah.
Who am I going to touch that desperately needs to be touched today?
Okay.
And then it gets magical.
Yeah.
And then I'm literally like, today at my exercise class, I was standing in my spot. I have my spot. I have to get there. And the head lady always wants to talk to me. I'm like, I got to get my spot. Like this, for some weird thing. So I put my stuff in my spot. And then I see a new girl that I didn't really know come. She's kind of standing behind me. And she's like smiling a little bit. And I looked at her and she's cute. But I get competitive weird, like to work out hard for myself. It's just weird. But anyway, she says, I like your necklace. And I think I had this one on. It says Star Power. And I was like, thank you. It's that kind of star power. And she goes, I love that. And I saw a twinkle in her eyeballs. And I was very clear we were to connect. And the class was starting. But I knew she had to see the necklace so I could see her eyes because we're supposed to connect. And then after we did, and she said, I gave her a flyer for I have this workshop coming up. And she goes, oh my God, I pulled this flyer off her desk last week and I've just been looking at it. You're her? Because I looked a little different than the photo. And I was like, yes. And she goes, I was telling her about it. She was like, this is exactly what I need right now. This is exactly what I need. And I was like, and you are what I need. Like, I'm happy to have you in my posse. I'm happy to get to know you. And I can't wait to have your ass at my workshop because it's going to be magical. But that's what happens all the time to me because I'm wide open and I see people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the scale of what you intend is not so important as to your being true to whatever the intention is.
Whose intention?
So for instance, I do think that there was a period in the progress of feminism where I think that women who stayed home and raised the kids felt bad about themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Because they weren't in corporate America.
Yeah.
Getting the next promotion.
Yeah.
And now I completely get where it was historically at the time, but the goal of liberation should be women being free to choose to be at home or at work, to make the choice and feel good about whatever choice that is.
And I think that's exactly right. I agree with that 100%. And feminism is a word that it's never resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even get what all the fighting and hollering. I know about the rights and, all these things that have happened that are beautiful. But I know who I am and I know why I'm on the planet. And when I walk in a room, it doesn't matter if it's 100 men or I don't even care. I'm going to own my space. And that to me is truly being powerful.
Yeah.
In a man or a woman. And when you show up with that power, you don't have to give a shit about the fighting or finger pointing or getting mad. I do understand activists who have created the space for me and the things that we've overcome as women and how recent it was, I do recognize all of that. But I think that all feminism, I think all of the fighting and the finger pointing can end when you stand fully in your power. You no longer need anyone outside of yourself. And that's what I freaking love. And I've never felt if there's 6 men in a room like, oh no, I'm like, right on fellas, roll up your sleeves. It's exciting.
Yeah.
But I think our women's thoughts hold them back from what were planted in their heads.
Yeah. Leigh, you've got the energy that I saw in the Ken Burns country music document. You've got Loretta Lynn energy. You've got Dolly Parton energy. You've got,
oh my gosh, I love them.
Okay, so let me now go back to Candice Bergen.
I'm going to take a quick drink of water, but Scott before told me that he felt if people drank water
on a panel
that they were not being present.
On a panel, it shows because they can't be drinking water and talking at the same time.
But right now I can look at you and listen.
Yeah, you can look at me and I'm going to
Okay, I just want you to know I'm with you.
So I drove away from Candice Bergen's house thinking, I want to work with her. This would be fun. And actually, we wound up doing all sorts of guests who never wanted to be on Politically Incorrect. That's who I first started going to first, was who always said no to us. And these people all said yes to her.
Oh,
or one day
because they felt safe.
Yeah. And one day I did an interview where someone said, what kind of guests do you want? And I mentioned so-and-so, so-and-so, and Madeleine Albright. And I think it was maybe in the LA Times. So a couple of days later, I get a call from Madeleine Albright, who was Secretary of State, from her office saying, the secretary has not received an invitation to appear on Miss Bergen's show. However, she would very much like to, if you all would be willing to come back to Washington. So like a few days later, we're flying back to DC and staying at the Hayes Adams. And then we're setting up our cameras in the floor below her office because the Secretary of State has an interior elevator so they can go up and down them, by themselves to the room below and meet people. They can go right back up to their office and not have to go out into the hallway. So we set everything up. She comes down the elevator, and here she is. And anyway, the whole thing was just magical and fun, and it was just great.
So great.
But then what happened, at the wrap party for the first season, she said to me, she took me aside and said, I need to tell you something, which is I'm getting married again and I'm going to move to New York, but I owe you a year. So I will do a second season here. Then I'm going to New York. So we wound up doing
Wait, how did you feel when she said it? Did your stomach drop and you were sad? Your initial human emotion?
No, I felt like these things have their span of time.
Yeah.
And I also, loved, Marshall, her husband that she was going to be marrying, her fiance. And just thought it made so much sense. But that I wouldn't be going to New York with her. And, but anyway, what happened was then we finished our second season. I still had a couple of months left on my contract with Oxygen. So then they said, all right, what we want you to do... Can I
tell the story after you tell this part?
Okay. Yeah. So then what they said was, we would like you, before you leave, we can have you do a couple more things for us. One of them is, we'd like you to do 4 one-person shows. And we have like a bookshelf of VHS tapes that people have sent us of their one-person shows. And this is where I will end my part of the story. I see a strip of masking tape with the words Miss Overland Park. And I was born in Kansas City. I lived on state line, so I knew Overland Park. So this was the first tape that I took out and then put it in, and that was you.
Oh my gosh. Do you know the story I was holding in my head about it? First, that there were...
Not until you tell me.
First, there were 5... You're not in my head.
Okay.
Now
right, I know.
Now
so
I'm
you got to tell
pissed.
me. Okay.
Okay, so I heard there were 5 one-man shows
Uh-huh.
that you had to choose, that you had to pick. That was in my head. And my other thing was, you came to the HBO Workspace where I was performing it. Gary Mann had asked me to come do it there from the first place, and then he asked me to come there. And then I thought you saw it there, and then came up to me after and said, I want to... Oh, that's what I remember.
No,
I made that up.
It was a tape, and the 4 people were Jim Fife, who did a show about his wife, Cindy Campanera.
I love her.
Sandra Singh-Low, and you.
Sandra Singh-Low. And me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wait, first of all, I have to right now profess my love for you. Something about you, I want to cry. I don't know why. Like, I love you so much. And when we worked together, I kept saying, I love you. I love you. And you're like, uh-huh. I was like, no, I really love you. Do you remember? Yeah.
Well, I think because we share, thank you very much. And I love you too. And thank you very much. And I think it's because we, so much of your story resonated for me because I was born in Kansas City, very bad asthma. And my family left Kansas City when I was 9, after I was in 3rd grade. And we went to Arizona because they thought that's how I was going to survive.
Well, they moved for your asthma.
Yeah.
It was that bad.
Yeah. Oh, in fact, here's a story. I went to Prairie.
Yeah.
Prairie grade school. Prairie, 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 to you will ever be true. We'll work for you and be good too. Under Kansas skies of blue.
Wait.
There was...
Hail to thee, our dear John Deemer. Hail to thee, we proudly sing. Hail to thee, our dear John Deemer. May our triumphs ever ring. My elementary school.
Okay.
Your turn. Now go back.
There was a kid in my 3rd grade class who moved to California, grew up to be a U.S. representative in California, Dave Dreyer, a Republican congressman. And we had him on our show. And so because I would prep all the guests in a room much smaller than this. I'm sitting across from him. I haven't seen him since 3rd grade. He doesn't know who I am. And I said, Miss Hughes, 3rd grade class, Prairie School. My name is Scott Carter. And he goes, you're little Scotty. We all thought you died. And then he gets on his cell phone and he calls his mother and says, you cannot believe who I'm here with right now. Remember Scotty Carter from Miss Hughes class, 3rd grade? He's the producer of this show that I'm about to be on.
Oh my gosh. Isn't it a small world? Yeah. And he thought you died because your asthma was so bad?
Yeah, because I would go for weeks and not be in class, or when I would show up, I couldn't go to recess.
I've never heard of asthma that bad. Tell me about that. Like, you just literally, it shuts up so tight. You can't breathe?
Yes, you can't breathe. It has nothing really to do with the lungs. It has to do with the air tubes going into the lungs.
Is it the...
So it'd be like if you were in a coal mine and all of a sudden there was a accident in the coal mine and all this toxic air was coming up. Your lungs would shut, these tubes would shut off to prevent you from taking poisonous air in. Well, for an asthmatic, that's what's happening. But there's no accident in the coal mine.
It's just happening.
It's just happening.
And they never, have they, today with the technology they have of everything, is it stress related? Is it biological? I mean,
what it's like is, I would say what it's like, or what the best metaphor for it, it's like playing blackjack. And if you get to 22, you're out. Okay, so for me, let's say you could get 4 or 5 points on seasonal pollen. You could get 4 or 5 points on a food allergy. You could get 6 or 7 points on stress, but you get to 22 and now you got an attack.
So yeah, it's a whole bunch of different components.
Whole bunch of different components. Yeah.
And were you a single kid or did you have siblings?
Oh, older brother, 2 younger brothers and younger sister, 1 of 5.
5. Oh my gosh, I was 1 of 5 and then another one came and I became 1 of 6. And I have 5.
And so you were the 5th?
I was the 4th.
Okay, I was the 2nd out of 5.
Yeah. So you didn't have, was everyone mad at you because they had to move away from because of your asthma and because you got most attention because they were worried about you?
Whether or not they were, I always assumed that they were. Because they would never say to me or my mother, who had to leave the only town she'd known for 38 years, and she would never say to me, I resent so much having to uproot my entire existence to move 1,200 miles to a place where I know no one.
Do you have guilt for that stuff?
Yes. This was a lot of my childhood, was thinking I need to be successful to be able to pay back the family that has sacrificed so much on my
Oh,
behalf.
Scott, it's so tender to my heart and it's so precious. You know, just the heaviness we carry from our childhood thoughts.
Yeah.
And that they all of us, we hold these things. Sometimes we don't even know they're in our mind, and they cripple us or they keep us from fully thriving because there's some sort of a negative energy. You know what I mean? Like, it did catapult you to where you are. It did get you successful. I mean,
but it also put a lot of stress on things. I mean, can you imagine, like, if you're because nothing was itself.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if I was in a play or I wrote a play or I started doing stand-up or whatever, it wasn't simply about, right now, I'm going to try and tell some jokes and see if people laugh. It was about, I have to make the people laugh so that this, you get on TV and then your rate goes up and then blah, blah, blah. And then a movie happens or a television show. So everything was fraught with a responsibility to succeed.
It wasn't just enjoy.
It wasn't just enjoy. It was never in the moment.
What's so interesting is that thought is from your childhood. And it's not happening now. It's not real. It's just a thought. So, something I do, and I'm doing it at my upcoming workshop that I love, is helping people pinpoint the day that thought got cemented, that pebble, I call it, that we put it on top of our head. And we start saying, I can't do that. I got a pebble on top of my head.
Not only that, and this is, I think, another thing that I related to when I watched your tape about growing up in Kansas City. It was a culture that, I was just back there for a family wedding. It's a culture where, for instance, they didn't really tolerate people going to therapy. They didn't really understand that.
No.
So not only did I have issues, I was in a culture, and then our family stayed that culture when we moved to Tucson, a culture where you cannot be seeking help.
Wow, man. That's why I have such deep compassion for my mom and my dad and their parents. They had so much going on in their lives, and my mother was mentally ill, as you know, and she was suffering so bad.
Yeah.
And my dad was giving her drugs because he was a doctor that she wanted, like to sleep and be awake, so she could, but it was nothing she needed. And I just watched both of them suffer. And I thought, wow, my dad's parents both died without ever once saying I love you to him. And so he said, when I have kids, I'm going to say it every night. And he said at first it was awkward. And then he couldn't go to bed without saying it, because he cultivated that love.
Wow.
But the thing that was crazy about it is his dad stole his money because he was a gambler. My father worked 3 jobs to go to college, and he stole his money to go to college. So my dad ended up paying his way through college, paying his way through medical school. He couldn't afford the books, but he had photographic memory. So he would just memorize the whole book and give it back to the guy. Like he got by. He did well, But then as my dad, he didn't ever get a heal. He didn't get a deal with his dad beating him. He didn't get a deal with all the loss and never being held and never told. So he did a little bit with us, which I just will never forget.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I cling on to, that when in my childhood, that.
Yeah.
More than, where the fuck are you, Mom?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so blown away right now about you. I didn't know that that's how you found it. You looked through all of these tapes. I don't even know how the hell my tape got there.
No, on the side of VHSs in those days, people would take a patch of masking tape.
Yes.
Then they would take a Sharpie and they would write the title.
Yes.
So I saw the title, Miss Overland Park.
I might have even taped it and written it myself and mailed it out. And I sent it to Oxygen because that was Oprah's big thing and I loved her. So what touches me is that you saw that because you're from Kansas City. this is what I just want to.
And Overland Park to me is Cat's drugstore with the cat on top.
Was that over by the state line?
I
was on
remember that
Metcalf.
I remembered that we would need to drive by there. We originally lived in Prairie Village, then we moved to State Line. But our grandparents, my father's parents, lived. I remember we would have to pass by the Katz's drugstore to get to my grandparents' house.
Yeah, so it was somewhere in relation to State Line and Prairie Village.
Yeah.
So I was 103rd Metcalf. I was Shawnee Mission South, like that district. So I was closer to like the hip new. You were a little bit towards the,
Yeah. Let me tell you a story that doesn't have an end yet, but it kind of happened with me going back to Kansas City. All right. When I was, as I mentioned to you, when I was in third grade in Kansas City, I was sick all the time. And one day, there's a knock on my door in the afternoon. I'm in the living room and I'm watching television, and my mother goes to answer the door, and it's this little girl. It's from my kindergarten. Little girl there, kindergarten or first grade. Little girl there, her name was Stephanie DeValpin, and she had a gift for me.
Aww.
And the gift was a hard rubber fluorescent green tractor with a figure of a little farmer, and he was fluorescent orange. And she brought it over. She had her mother find out where I lived, and she was noting how I was sick so often from school, and she came over to give it to me. And okay, so I haven't seen this woman since kindergarten or first grade, whenever it was. But I knew I was going to Kansas City, so I looked her up on Facebook.
Oh.
And I start to find this biography by reading her timeline, and I friend her, but I've never heard back. That she became a Christian Scientist. She became this person who was, into all this do-good work. She has columns that she wrote for some Christian Science newsletter. Anyway, what was so fascinating about it to me was that the person who she became as an adult, she was when she was 5.
Oh, Scott, I love that. I love that so much. I love it so much because also when I talk to people, I say, what did you do? What kind of stuff did you do? What lit you up when you were little? What made you feel good? And the stuff that happens in our childhood are markers of who we are to become. Every single thing that happens.
But a lot of us betray that person.
Oh, of course.
A lot of us do that.
Because we have a mind which screws us.
Right, but this is a woman who did not. This was a woman who, she was a little girl going to class and seeing an empty seat every day or often, and then thinking, I should do something for him. Needs to get her parents to figure out where we lived, get her to drive them over to the house.
But I have to
knocks on the door.
I have to say, so she was showing signs of who she was becoming when she was little.
Yeah.
And who knows if she got derailed and did drugs and fell in a creek and got divorced and then came back. Well, what I do know. What I do know is this. Yeah. You don't know because you haven't talked to her forever and she hasn't accepted your friend request.
Yeah.
So that is a mystery.
Yeah.
But what I know about life and what I think is so grand about it is that there's kind gestures and then there's this mess. And I think the mess and the heartache of holding that burden and the heartache of asthma. Why is my shirt falling apart right now? Does it just want to get on you?
It's unraveling.
Things are really going south. But what was I saying about this? Oh, the mess.
Yeah.
We all have it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love so much about this podcast. And that's what I love so much about life is I walk into a room. I went to a party with a bunch of really wealthy women in somebody's house up in the hills. I'm coming in there all like this and being me. And I was looking at all of them, and a couple of them were so polished like this. And I just looked at them and I thought, oh, I know they're struggling. I know something in them is hurting because we're human and we all have that. And no matter what you put on your earth suit or how you decorate it, you look snazzy, by the way, today. I look a little bit like a man who runs a conductor train. Would you say with my
No, I think you're no, this is perfect.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and I got a little black like you, so something's going on. Yeah. All right. But I just calm myself a lot when I feel insecure. just looking at them and going, they're human, man. And they're hurting so much. And I don't know if they have the tools like I know to help get out of it. So I can just love them, especially the ones who are acting like assholes. You know, it's like, oh, let me go love that person because they're hurting so deeply that they can't.
Okay, tell me a story about one time that you did that, where you saw someone like that in a situation, you went over, you were generous toward them, and then think of one time, how did they respond?
Oh, I can tell you 100 because it happens daily because I can kind of feel people, you know, and sometimes my voice will say, go touch their arm or go say something or go tell them you notice their pants. And I used to say no to the voice. I'm in a hurry. I got to get out of here. Boo. And I've said this one before on the podcast, but there's two that really stand out to me three, but I'm gonna just tell two. One, there's a girl named Ginger in my exercise class and she's ripped to the T. She's probably like 55. She's like this and her, you know, and she wears leg weights and arm weights. So she stands right up at the front. She wears the same dingy outfit every time, you know, same like 3 outfits. And I always would notice her and I was like, wow, I don't like her energy at all. So I would never stand by her, but she never went when I went because I never went on the weekends. So one weekend I went and she was in my spot, but I was like, oh, this is her time to go. So I got to find a new spot, but it's going to be nowhere near her because her energy is, I can't take it. So I go far away. So then I kind of look at her in the mirror, you know, we're working on, I'm looking at her a little bit in the mirror and I say, wow, she has some different clothes on today. Wow, they're brighter. I think she bought some new workout clothes. Holy shit, I haven't seen her in 5 years and she bought new workout clothes. Wow, her hair used to be gray and now it's kind of blonde. So I was noticing these things. So I was looking at her. And then class was over and the voice told me to go tell her what I observed about her. And I was like, oh, hell no. I have an eyebrow appointment, blah, 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 blah. I'm running late already, back to back. I can't. So I go up to get my stuff out of the cubby really fast and a water bottle slams down and I pick it up. And of course it's Ginger. So I was like, hey, Ginger, you dropped your bottle. And I grabbed my shit and ran out the door, ran to the stop light, pushed the button. And I just missed it. It was red. And Ginger walked up next to me. I was like, okay, I'll fucking tell her. And I turned and I said, Ginger, I just want to know, I haven't seen you for a while. And I noticed the bright colors you have on and your hair looks really beautiful. I think it's blonde now. I really like it. I just really noticed you today. And she started bawling. And I waited and she said, my husband left me after 27 years and I've been 6 months in bed, so depressed. And I just thought, get up, get a couple new workout outfits, do your hair and go. And then you said that to me. You know, it was just this like, people are so hungry. So if you guys ever get a feeling to say something nice to someone, say it. Never hold it, especially strangers.
Yeah. There is something that we pick up if we're intending to have these kind of intuitions, and then it kind of becomes natural. It's natural. Yeah, I remember seeing an interview with Orson Welles many years ago where he was saying that when he was young and he was an actor before he became a director, and he was in a touring company, and so he would have all day to himself. So he used to put an ad in the newspapers that he was a fortune teller. And then he'd get a turban and a crystal ball and he'd rent a hotel room and people would come and knock. And he said he was just doing it as a joke. But when he kept doing it month in, month out, or week in, week out, he developed some intuition. And he said he stopped when one day a woman sat down across from him and he said, your husband just died. And she started crying. And then he said, I needed to stop because I wasn't intending. I had no skill to be helping, but I was getting an intuition for people being in hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oftentimes that's what I do on the show that I work on now.
What show is that?
Show is called Real Time with Bill Maher. It's on HBO, and we have 5 guests a week. We're in our 17th year.
17th year. That's so weird because that never happens. How did you guys keep it going just because it's so relevant all the time, every day?
Yeah, well, we have a great team, and a lot of us have been working together between 15 and 25 years. And so everybody knows what to do. It's like the Stones don't rehearse satisfaction anymore. They all know it. And everybody on our team knows what they should be doing. But anyway, very often I'm meeting someone for the first time in a small room, like Dave Dwyer, that I mentioned, the Representative Dave Dwyer from California, the Republican. And I'm looking in their eyes and I'm trying to figure out within the first couple of seconds What adjustment do they need to get to where they're going to have to be at 7:00 to do a live television show with 300 people in the audience and a really smart and funny host?
Yes.
Yeah. Who could turn on them?
Yeah.
Who can just as easily disagree with them as agree with them?
Yeah. You know, I love that approach because it's the same thing you did with Candice Bergen. You came in and said,
right. What does she need?
What does she need? Well, how can I, and this is speaking to me right now because people are like, well, how do you help people? What do you do exactly? What do you, and I have to have this clear message, but it is fulfilling a need that they have. And that's what you do. And that's a game changer because people are instantly safe with you and can be vulnerable and can open up and can show up in a way that you want because you care about seeing who they are and meeting their need.
And in the same way that I talked a little bit before about having a mutual friend, very often when I close the door and I'm alone in a room with some conservative, they will talk about having called up some other conservative who has told them that I will be fair with them.
Oh,
because I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah, and plus,
that I know a lot of people.
And Bill's powerful and very opinionated.
Yeah, and what people often say to me, particularly conservatives, they'll say, "I don't know why I'm here," and I will be thinking, "It's because you're trying to sell a book. That's why you're here." And then they'll say, "I'm not going to change his mind, and he's not going to change my mind." And what I will say is,
"Perfect.
That's not the point. The point is, we will probably have somewhere between 5 and 5.5 million people who will be seeing this show between now and the last of the repeats next Wednesday. So they don't have the time to be investigating all the issues that you know about or Bill knows about or the other panelists. So if you can make a case for your side, you have millions of people who may come around to your way of thinking.
Yeah.
That's your focus.
Yeah, I wrote one time on Facebook, you think differently than, you can tell me if it's I or me. You think differently than me?
Than I do.
Well, I just put I. So you think differently than I?
Mm-hmm.
Question mark?
Then I think, yeah, right.
Wait.
You always know if it's right or wrong by extending the word. So
me do.
Yeah.
I do.
You wouldn't say me do.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing to know at 53 years old.
Yeah.
Because I always get confused.
Yeah.
So I put, you think differently than I? Question mark. How wonderful. Let's meet for coffee. I'd love to hear all about it.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. It's like when we are mad at someone who doesn't think the way we were with our heritage and where we grew up and what our parents shoved in our head and what we still believe. When we're mad at someone else that they don't believe what your parents told you to believe, you're screwed in life because you're closed off. Mm-hmm. And that's so stale and tiring. Mm-hmm. We're here to be curious, right? Like children. Mm-hmm. So when somebody's like, I'm this or that, and I have judgment on it, just happened when I got my eyebrows done. A girl said, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. And I said, holy hell, I haven't had a conversation with one. I've just judged it from the documentaries I've watched. Do tell, girl. She was like, well, what do you want to know? And we had this beautiful conversation. And I talked about my spirituality and what it means to me. And she was like, I feel kind of the same way. And I said, but you're going to go in a spaceship back to the good old place, right? With Ronell. And she was like, people keep talking about the spaceship. I have not read that in any of the literature. And I was like, well, I know nothing about it to talk about that with
L.
you.
Ron, you're confusing Scientology with Jehovah's Witnesses.
No, Scientology is L. Ron Hubbard.
That's right, but that's not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Did I say Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, you said.
Oh no, I was wrong.
Oh,
she was a Scientologist.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
So thank you for correcting me. She was a Scientologist. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've just heard the most horrific things from Leanne Rimes or whatever, Lena Ream, whatever. That one girl.
No, it's
something
we had her on our show, and I'm forgetting her last name.
Yeah, so I've heard from her, and I've seen these documentaries about really them attacking people.
Yeah,
and I said, so I know that in every religion that there are people who are extremists, and I said, so is that kind of the norm? But if you fall in love with someone, they're not in the program. Do they get exiled? Like I've heard so many things. So we had a really great conversation, and what I left with was I really like that girl, and I learned some shit. So I love that freedom I give myself, not to suffer because someone's not believing what I've stamped in my brain. Everyone must believe.
Right. Now, I had a similar thing in that in 1986, when I lived in New York, I had a near-death experience. And it kind of opened me to God. I'd been closed off to the notion of God. And since that day, I've never doubted the existence of God, though I have doubted whether or not I'm worthy of grace. And so I kind of
Are you
made this
still
deal.
dealing with that?
No, I'm farther along now. It's 35 years
Okay.
later.
Oh.
So I've moved things along a little bit.
I see.
But what I wanted to do at first, what I did at first was anytime somebody wanted to talk to me about religion or have me read something or go to some service, I used to say no to everybody. Then I just thought, all right, what I'm going to do for the next couple of years is I'm going to say yes to everyone and see where it leads. So I had this near-death experience. I was in the hospital in Bellevue where I just found out Stephen Foster died.
Wow.
And so I was there for a week, get out, have this epiphany, think I'm convinced of there being a God. And then I make this resolution, I'm going to be open. And then a couple of days later, there's a knock at my door.
It's a little girl with a truck?
No, it's a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh.
It's a guy who's a Jehovah's Witness. His name is Kim Lawrence. And so I bring him in, give him a glass of water, sit him down on the couch. He talks to me for an hour. And I said, well, look, I don't believe anything you believe. I believe that you believe what you believe, though I don't accept it. But if you want to come back next week at the same time, I will listen to you more. And so he came for about a year and a half or so, every Wednesday.
Oh my gosh!
Sometimes he brought at 1:00 every Wednesday. Sometimes he brought one of his higher ups. It's like if you go into a car dealership and you're talking to the salesman, then he's got the manager. Yeah. The manager's going to try and seal the deal. So, and then I found out later that I was the first door that this guy had knocked on when he became a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, what a wonderful first door.
So he thought that, wow, I must be great at doing this. The very first door I knock on, I'm going to get a convert. And no, it wasn't true. I never did convert.
Yeah.
Anyway, then I moved from New York out to LA. I've been here since 96. And one day I was back in New York and I went up to my old the area where my old apartment was, way up on the Upper West Side up by Columbia. And I was kind of making the rounds. I went to the dry cleaners where I used to take laundry on the weekends. And I hear this guy's voice. Kim, I hear his voice. And I turn around and there he is. And he's with now his wife. He's gotten married in the meantime. And so I said, Kim, I'm Scott Carter. It's such a delight to see you. And he said, oh, Scott, could we take time to have a talk right now? And I said, well, I can't do it right now. And he said, I said, how? I said, I'm in town for another day and a half. So he's a security guard at the Natural History Museum. So the next day, I go to the Natural History Museum and I meet in front of some buffalo diorama or something. And we have a talk. He says a prayer for me.
Oh.
And that was the last time I saw him.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
You accepted that and had that openness and that friendship and then got to have that beautiful moment with him again.
Well, also, and even when I saw him years later, he was completely walking his walk.
Yeah.
He wasn't a bullshit guy.
Yeah.
He never tried to sell me on anything. He never tried to. And I completely believed that he believed what he believed, but I couldn't accept it. So, for instance, some religions, it's all about what's going to happen in the afterlife. And I don't care about that.
I don't either. People say, what do you think of afterlife? I said, I believe in it. I support whatever you believe in, whatever your journey here, whatever you're supposed to learn about. That doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, I'm willing to be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Who's the guy that you look like? A man around your age? Dick Cavett? I can't think of his name.
Well, I know Dick Cavett because we've had him on different shows, but people have never said that I look like him.
No, but there's somebody you remind me of. Who is it? Is it someone?
I don't know.
You never get told anything like that?
I sometimes get told different people, but I feel like people are being too generous.
Well, I want to hear one.
Hugh Grant is who people have said.
Oh,
in the
yeah,
past.
because you carry yourself as well and dress like him. And I love your glasses. They're two-tone.
Thank you.
Okay, who else?
All right, let's stop. We'll stop with Hugh Grant. We'll go to something.
Wait. Can I tell you who I get?
Yeah.
Can you think of someone? Wait. Maybe from Bill Maher.
No, and I'm going to be bad at doing this.
Okay, so here's who I got for a long time. Not for a long time, in the last 10 years, Julia Roberts.
Okay, I can see it.
Okay, so I went to some event with my husband. Mm-hmm. It was a black tie, whatever. Dave was presenting or something. And I'm in line to go in. Oh, I'm in line to this great photographers taking pictures of all the famous people. And Oliver Stone comes in, escorted in, going to go to the front. And he goes, Julia, and kisses me on the cheek. And I said, Oliver. And then he walked to my house and goes, what the hell was that? I go, I think he just thought I was Julia Roberts, which made me giggle. I loved it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my story. But I want to hold you for 1 second because something you said earlier. Oh, I was wanting to come back to this, and normally I can't remember anything, so I'm really excited right now. So earlier you said, when I was talking about, I had this vision in my mind and I know it's coming. And you said, well, sometimes people don't know your vision, but when you said that, it just struck something in me that I don't need anyone to know my vision, because when I'm walking towards it, I attract the exact people that are going to facilitate it to happen. And it's happening with me right now. I've had this kind of big life change recently. And I went from thinking everything was super sturdy and this was my life, to it crumbling and then going, oh, I can't see my foundation anymore. And literally filling out my body going, I'm still standing. Oh God, what do you have planned for me? I'm ready. Let's go. And I got to flip the heartache and the heaviness to embrace it and excitement with curiosity and a complete knowing that vision I've held since I was 25, getting money out for cocaine in Hollywood, that's coming.
I don't know the cocaine. I don't know this story.
Oh, I'm going to tell you.
That.
So I was partying with my friend Stuart. We lived together. We got off work. I said, I'll go get money. We're going to buy cocaine. And then we're going to go to El Coyote. Is that the one over there?
El Coyote in Beverly, the last place that Sharon Tate ate.
Wow. You have knowledge about every single thing, but I'm staying on track besides listening to your awesome knowledge because you are a plethora. It doesn't stop. You're a walking encyclopedia. So anyway, I get my money out. I put my bank machine in. I put in however much I had to get out, $100, whatever. And then as if it were happening, I don't know if it was in my head or my eyes were closed or if I was watching a movie, but it was the most real thing I've ever seen. And it was me on stage, and I'm 24 and I'm partying my ass off and making out and running like wild through the streets of Hollywood with no attachment to my spirituality, even though I still had some stuff, whatever, but I wasn't using it as a power and as my source. So I was getting money out. I have this vision. I'm on stage in like a theater or sold out, something big. And I have a Janet Jackson in the 80s. This was early 90s. And I called it a Janet Jackson microphone from Rhythm Nation. So I had this microphone on and I am looking at everyone and there's lights and we're dancing and it was so alive. And it was like, and then I came back and my money came out and I stuffed it in my pocket. I was walking in my car and I thought, wow, am I going to be a rock star? Am I going to be a poet? Am I going to be a lecturer? No, they wouldn't have that many lights. I was like, what am I going to do? And I didn't even know that I was going to get on the path I'm on right now, which is speaking to people and connecting with more and more people and bigger people and doing bigger events. And I know all of the stuff from my whole life that I've learned from that's made me strong. All the stories of heartache. I'm like, oh, I'm such deep gratitude for them because they got me through the tumultuous times of my home. And then I learned I no longer need to be strong, and I got to melt that. And then I got to get full circle with my mom, who you know about from my show, from you weren't a mom to, I think she might have been doing as good as she could do, to what was her story growing up? Oh my God, she was in hell. Having such compassion for her and forgiveness. And when I was with her right before she died, I moved her. My 3-year-old daughter tells me in the car she's never met my mom. I want to talk to your mom right now. And I said, oh, honey, you're thinking of Dave's mom. Your dad's mom, she died. Remember, she died. Just, nope, I want to talk to your mom. She's 3. She doesn't even know I have a mom. My mom doesn't even know about Eve because she's in her own world in Kansas City. I go, all right, call my mom. She answers the phone. I go, hey, it's Leigh. She goes, Leigh, please come get me. Please come get me. And Eve goes, where are you, Grandma? Where are you? What street should we turn on? Mom, go get her. And I go, okay. And 2 weeks later, I moved her here, right by me, to a place right by me, a facility.
So what year is this?
My mom died 2 years ago. And I moved her.
So this is way after the show.
Way after.
And the end scene in the show was about you visiting her in the hospital.
I don't remember. Was it?
Yeah, that's my memory.
It
Either
was-
you're in the hospital and she's not sympathetic to you,
Well,
or
I
you
almost-
go to visit her in the hospital.
I know when I had Charlie,
Mhm.
I almost died and I bled out and they took out my uterus and it was 50-50 if I was going to live, but it was 100% mortality rate 10 years before. She didn't come out. You know, it was kind of like, it's like the times I really needed her was when I really realized how much I didn't have her, you know? So she didn't come out for it or call or anything and I almost died. And I just remember the heaviness of that. And I don't know if the ending was me saying I had this baby boy and you will never.
I don't think so. It was something where she did something that at the time you found disgusting.
Oh, she peed all
Yes.
over everything.
Yes.
Like I set things down and she urinated all over everything. And I was just standing there crying, trying
Yeah.
to.
Or she gave you something to drink. That's what it was.
Oh, I went to visit her, always trying to seek and move on and connect. And I went to her room and I'm talking to her and I picked up a big gulp cup or something. And she saw me pick it up and I put it to my mouth and I put the straw in and started drinking and I spit out. And I think I went to the bathroom and throw up. I was like, what was that? She goes, sorry, I peed in the cup. I go, what?
That was the end of the show.
Yeah. And I was like, what?
So what year was that?
When that happened, I'd say probably 10 years ago, because 5 years ago I moved her here and she lived here for.
Oh, it's longer than that because
I have no sense of
you would have
time.
done the show in 2000 or 2001 was when we did the taping. So this must have happened at the very end of the 90s.
We have 5 minutes left. And I want to
Okay.
just say this, that Scott Carter, you came into my life at a time when I was super vulnerable because I told my husband, I just want to be a stay-at-home mom. And then I got there and I was like, this is it. Got a little blob here. I'm not with my friends. I'm fat. What the hell have I done? And I started writing a one-woman show. And my husband came in and said, Hollywood doesn't work that way. You got to pay your dues. You got to work for 20 years. You got to do this and that and this and that. And I just looked at him and said, you know, you can either support me or say nothing, but I'm going to write a one-woman show. I'm going to get it on the Oxygen Network and I'm going to have a development deal after. And he said, you have no idea what you're talking about. I said, well, just give me my hour, 8 to 9 every night. I did the show. They asked me to do the HBO Workspace. And then I get called, will you do it for a network? And I said, what network? And they said, Oxygen. And I was like, yes, I will. And then I had a development meeting with Lisa Harrison at Fox at the time. It didn't go anywhere, but I was like, I went home and I was like, I just shot a 5-camera show on the Oxygen Network, you know? And it was my first time to do anything like that. It was my first creative endeavor and it had such clarity. And you showed up as the angel. Of course, it was you in that room, few months left at Oxygen to look at the things and you see your hometown and pick my tape. Like that's synchronicity at its greatest. That you have done one-man shows. You have experienced Kansas City. You had your things you had to overcome, right? And still grappling with some of it. And me too. And you saw me that day on a shelf and masking tape.
Let me clarify one thing, though.
Please.
It wasn't simply that I saw the name and then picked it. I watched it and liked it and then picked it.
I love that so much. And before I was with you, I had a bed and I had a little set there and I had a chair and I was all over the place. I would get under the covers to be my mom. And you said, you're going to stand on stage and tell your story. I was like, what? I'm used to hiding under the covers. And remember I said, can I drink a glass of wine before or two? And you said no. I would say no. That was very good advice because alcohol is something that's been very interesting for me my whole life. So it was such great advice. I was like, no. And I remembered that too, because I never drank before I did anything again. I mean, I did after. Yeah, I made up for it.
After's fine.
But you told me that and it stuck with me. So I love you on so many levels as an earth angel, as someone I admire, as someone who I see their soul so clearly when I look into your eyeballs. And you're just one of the kindest people I know and smartest. And in this crazy political thing and such a gentleman. And I just really honor you and I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much. I also feel the same way about you. And one of the things that was delightful about working with you was there was never a time that I said something to you where I didn't get an instant response. And when a performer gives a response back to a producer or a director, there's a sense of, okay, I can work with this. It's when someone shuts down and they're not accessible, or their feelings are not accessible to them, so they can't show them to the people they're supposed to be collaborating with. That's when working is not fun.
Yeah. So I was the other one?
You were the one that was fun.
Oh, good.
You were the one that always came with enthusiasm, new ideas, reaction to whatever I said, respect for where I was coming from, and you were a delight to work with.
And I don't even think I really knew who you were at the time. I just thought this really cool guy picked me, and hell yeah, I get to work with him. And then as I've gotten to kind of watch your career and learn more about you and the people that you've had in your life, that you've attracted into your life, huge people, I just feel so honored to be a part of them, a part of it.
And it's not over.
Woo! It's not over.
So it keeps going.
Yeah. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. This has been fun.
It was so fun. And you're just such a little bit of an icon to me. And I think you will be when people really know your story and all you've been through and what you've done. It's really a Renaissance man. It's very impressive.
Thank you very much, Leigh.
Okay, now give me one more compliment and we'll call it a day.
You have not aged a minute since I met you 20 years ago.
What happened? Botox?
I don't know.
Working out? I work out. Juicing?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm happy. And I take care of
That's
myself on the inside. I think that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Hey, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's hug it.
Okay. All right.
No, stand up. I like different ways.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Darling.
Okay. Sweetheart.
Oh, I'm so happy with you.
Great to see you.
Yes. So good.
Wonderful.
Now I can, you're so precious.